I've always made a model that, leave something better than how you found it, and always try to make an impact on the world. Whatever you do, make a positive impact, whether it's on someone's life, whether it's on creating something. Things aren't going to get created by themselves, so they have to have people that will do it. And I'm one of those doers.
Welcome to the Vertical Farming Podcast, weekly conversations with fascinating CEOs, founders, and agtech visionaries. Join us every week as we dive deep into the world of vertical farming with your host, Harry Duran.
Vertical Farming Podcast, Season 2, Episode 3, which I may adjust to Episode 16 so you get a feel for all the episodes available in the catalog. If this is your first time listening, you're in the right place, as this is the show where we interview fascinating CEOs and founders of the leading vertical farming companies from around the world. I'm your host, Harry Duran. In case you missed last week's episode, I had a great conversation with Eddie Bedrina, the CEO of Eden Green. It was really a masterclass in understanding product market fit with Eddie's extensive background in his previous marketing company and the expertise that he brings to Eden Green. It was really a fascinating story, and I learned a lot, and we've been getting good feedback from the episode as well. Make sure you check it out. Special thanks to our episode sponsor, Ceres Greenhouse Solutions. If you're looking for a greenhouse solution that will suit your specific climate and growing goals, then talk to an expert from Ceres Greenhouse Solutions. Ceres combines passive solar concepts, innovative climate control technologies, and customized grow systems to ensure that their growers are yielding the highest quality product year-round for the lowest operational cost. Visit ceresgreenhousesolutions.com, that's spelled C-E-R-E-S, greenhousesolutions.com to learn more. This week, I had the privilege of speaking with DeMario Vitalis. He's the founder of New Age Provisions, and in partnership with Freight Farms, has launched his first and on his way to his second container farms. And he talks about the challenges he's overcome in getting the farm launched, how important it is to have the support of family, and how much value he's providing to the community. The topic of food deserts comes up, and it's something we've talked about on previous episodes. And I think what's important is how Mario is sharing all the new things and skills he's had to learn, how his experience in real estate has helped him in this endeavor. And we learn about the ins and the outs of his business, what a typical day looks like for him, and also an important discussion about the opportunities that have been opening up for minority owners, especially with such a small percentage of minority farm owners. It's a really important topic that we discuss. Really enjoyed this inspiring conversation with Mario, so let's get into it. So, DeMario Vitalis, better known as Mario, thank you for joining us on the Vertical Farming Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Harry.
So we are in late September 2020. I like to timestamp these only because we're going through probably an unprecedented year, and it's probably one that most people wish was over by now.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering, just as a check-in, how things have been for you personally, and for the company, which we'll get into, since everything sort of hit the fan in March.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, personally for me, it's been tough. I had a few deaths in our family of some pretty close people. So like everyone, I think we're all kind of in a shock on how this year is going and still trying to recover mentally from it. So yeah, it's been something for me. Pretty tough year. With the farm, I am new to farming. Just received the greenery in late June. So I did get off the ground running, where we were able to get the farm connected and running in about 3 to 4 weeks. And so we started growing, and we're growing healthy vegetables right now, which we're proud of, and hopefully will be to the market pretty soon, within the next month or so. We're predicting to hopefully, be started with our CSA program, farm share program, and also be able to go directly to restaurants with some produce.
Yeah, that's exciting, and I definitely want to dig into that. Sorry to hear for your losses. I lost my best friend from high school to COVID as well, and that's, I think, until it happens to someone that close, and in your case, family, like then when it really hits home and you realize, like, how important it is that, for people that are not aware of it, it's something that's affecting, and the deaths, I think, is now we finally crossed the 200,000 mark.
Yeah, 200,000
here in the States. Yeah. So that's someone also I heard on a radio show that average of family members connected to someone that's passing is about 9 or 10. So when you think about that, like the impact that it's had is closer to like 2 million people almost in terms of affected like their personal lives. So it's something important not to lose sight of.
Yep, 7 degrees of separation. So we're all soon to know someone who will or has been affected.
Yeah. So just winding the clock back a little bit, where did you start? And it could be either your entrepreneurial journey or your green thumb journey. If you can think back, what's the earliest memory of that for you?
So for me, it's had to start with rental property. That's where I first got a taste of being an entrepreneur. The house that I grew up in, my grandmother owned it. So I had the opportunity to buy it off of her, and then I rented it, and I still own that house today. It's almost free and clear, but I'm now renting it to a family member, my aunt. And so real estate kind of started turning me into the entrepreneur, and I was able to not only acquire that property, but also gain a few more parcels over the time. And when I started to look at the income coming in from owning parcels, it kind of made me think about what else could we do. I remember looking into modular homes and, doing homes with shipping containers. And as I was just browsing the internet, looking at shipping containers and how they make houses out of them, I also saw that they made farms out of them too. And so that kind of piqued my interest on, oh, wow, you could take a shipping container and kind of design it to grow 365 days a year and make some of the freshest vegetables. And, I was already into real estate, but having vast amounts of agricultural zone land, that's something I never had access to. And when I found out that you can take these vertical farms and not only put them on any type of limb, they're also movable, they're enclosed, it's a clean environment, it kind of intrigued my interest over vertical farming. So I did more research, and eventually, I locked into Freight Farms, who to me offered the best type of product and per output product, or per output per machine. So I just kind of narrowed it down to them and ended up investing in the greenery, and that's where I am today. That brought me here today. Vertical farming inside of a greenery.
And now you're on a vertical farming podcast, talking about your experience as well. So what was it about that aspect of it? Because you had the experience as a property owner and landowner now. What was it about the model, the business model of a greenery that attracted you?
It was the ease of use, I think, and just having a easy learning curve for those who have never been introduced to farming. I'm a city guy, I'll be honest. I live in Indianapolis, Indiana. I lived in the city all my life. I've never did field farming. I've never done any type of farming in my life, so it was very important for me not only knowing how to grow crops, but knowing how to control nutrients and to control the electronic connectivity, and also those things that I was not accustomed to in a traditional farming atmosphere. And I think having the greenery eliminates some of those factors. Like, I don't have to worry about soil. I don't have to worry about my soil temperature. I don't have to worry about the seasons. Only being in Indiana, we have to plant in either May or April in the springtime after the first frost. But in a greenery, I don't have to worry about that. So it kind of eliminated some of those factors that most traditional farming have to worry about, and then put me at a playing field where I can be successful my first time out. Like, I'm in my greenery now, and if I have time, I'll flip the camera over and you can kind of see some of the plants that I've planted for the first time. I planted collard greens. I planted, greens. Lettuce, and it's successful the first time out, without having to tend to the soil or worry about temperatures and, those type of things that traditional farming has to worry about. So it's probably the ease of use and the way it is for normal people to get involved. That kind of puts it a benefit in my eyes.
You may be the first guest that actually broadcasting from within an actual
Yeah, I'm here.
vertical
I'm in
farm.
it. Hey, it's quiet.
So
Once you turn off all
yeah.
the fans and everything, it's quiet.
It sounds good too. Makes for a great impromptu recording studio as well.
Yeah.
So are you the first farmer in your family?
I'm the first farmer in my family. Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how far you want to go back. Because, there was a time in 1863 where,
Yeah.
But I am the first farmer that I know of in my family. I'm the first one in Indiana to own this type of machine, the vertical farming greenery. So there's a lot of firsts going on, which kind of makes it scary at the same time because you have to be brave enough to face the unknown. And, there are a lot of things that I wish I can pick up the phone and go to next door and ask someone, but they're probably not familiar with hydroponic farming out of a 40-foot shipping container. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So how important was it to have a community of people and how has that grown? And what does that look like in terms of people that can support you when you do have questions like that?
So I think the support that I get from the freight farms, marketing, and engineering team is great. I use them to help me build my community and to give me the answers that I need. So whenever I have a problem, I can just pick up the phone and give them a call. They're available, quick to answer, and they're willing to help. Other than that, I have been able to reach out to a few hydroponic farmers who do like microgreens and things like that. And they give us insights on how to grow pH levels we should be looking at and things like that. And also where to get stuff in the city, like different tools, buckets, and nutrients that we need. So it's good to have a community, but I think, with me being so new to the hydroponic farming and having this piece of equipment, I have to rely more on the manufacturer to give me the information I need if there's a problem.
How did you make the decision? Because when I'm looking at the site, I see in terms of the product overview, you've got herbs, leafy greens, microgreens, fruits, lettuce, even cannabis there. So how are you making that call about what's the proper mix, especially for your first one, so you have the best chance of success?
So I didn't do a good job the first time out. I planted everything, everything out on the site. I have growing in here. Yeah. So I've got collard greens, and those are growing for a restaurant that I'm close to, Simply Southern Soul Food.
Okay.
I also just tried a few things out that I'm just experimenting with. I'm also growing a lot of herbs like basil and mint, growing a lot of those, and it's a contract grow for freight farms, so I have the opportunity to provide those to the market. But I think me as of now, I'm just kind of experimenting and seeing what grows best in the greenery. But the collard greens and the lettuce are for the CSAs. Those are spoken for. Cannabis too, probably, but
that depends on the laws. Obviously the laws in your local state as well. So
yeah, so in Indiana, you have to have a license to grow, and I do have a license to grow and handle, and it's CBD only. Marijuana is not legal here, so it has to be 0.3% and below. So I have to get my plants tested when they start to flower and just make sure that their levels are below the legal limit.
Okay. And so how do you think about and how are you working through the challenges? Because one aspect of it is obviously picking what has the best chance of growing, what you like growing, and what you actually think you have to have on your sales hat also. What's the market for specific greens in your area? So now that you've experimented with a couple, how are you thinking about this from a marketing perspective too? Because you have to wear multiple hats, right? As the entrepreneur.
That is true. From a marketing standpoint, I know that collard greens will be successful in our area because they don't grow too well in the Midwest, and we typically get a lot of products shipped in from either West Coast or down south. So things like that, herbs and basil and mint, they'll be successful because, again, those are fresh herbs that have a less of a shelf life, and especially when you include the transit time, they start to lose value and they start to lose their freshness when you include the transit time. So I'm trying to get things that consumers will appreciate. Like, if I'm growing greens, they're top bunch collared. If I'm growing mint, it's not the common mint that you can get in the stores. It's the spearmint, the peppermint. If I'm growing kale, it's not the kale that you can get in the stores. It's black kale. So I kind of want to have a distinct mix, where not the stuff that you could get in stores, but yet, if you compared it to the stuff you get in the stores, you can see the quality and the freshness within our product is superior.
Is that something that it's important to you to demonstrate and educate your customers about freshness? Because they may not think about, and most people don't, like, how many miles did this lettuce travel to get to my plate? And how does that affect, how fresh it is and how fresh they want to make it look, depending on the fancy packaging and the and the marketing and freshly picked and triple washed and all that sort of stuff. But, so part of it is an education process for your consumers as well.
Yep, that's 100% correct. Education is a huge part of it, because in a consumer's eyes, when you put two pieces of mint in front of them, they're not going to know the difference between a hydroponic one and probably the one that was grown from soil. So you have to educate them, and you have to let them see the texture and the taste of the product. So that's why it was very important for me to get growing first of all, and to kind of offer a variety of products to some choice restaurants that we have in the area. But education is key, so I will have to come in to front of the customer with knowing the product, knowing the differences between them, and also knowing how they're superior and how local product. We have a lot of flexibility. If this is not what you're looking for, in 6 to 8 weeks I can have you something different. That's huge. Having that flexibility, being able to not only know where the product comes from, but having a line to your farmer. They have a direct contact to me if they need, so I can be there when they need it. So I think that support is an additional benefit of buying local and buying from New Age Provisions farms that they wouldn't get if they bought it from a store or big supplier.
Can you recall any examples of where you're doing taste tests, or you're giving people, this is what it tastes like when it's, fresh and literally just picked yesterday versus something else? And do people can they taste the difference, and are they surprised?
Yeah, the biggest thing is to invite them to the farm. That's what I typically like to do, and let them look at the how we grow. And as they look, I can offer them tastes and samples of it, and they take it and smell it and taste it, and oh, I can taste the difference, and you can feel the zing in your mouth and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's very important. And also what we plan to do soon is also when our plants get mature enough, we'll take them out the pods and take samples and get them in front of chefs and be like, okay, here's what we have growing, this is what we have available. And, let them pick it up and see how the plant still has the roots attached to it and how it's live. And, I think that in itself will be a selling point, that they can finally see, touch, and smell the product.
And how much of that is you doing the old school knocking door to door, or are these relationships that you've built up, in your previous exposure to the community and ties that you've had maybe through real estate or anything like that? Or just can you talk a little bit about the building of the relationships with restaurants and letting them know that you are here as an alternative now for some fresher local produce?
Yep. A lot of it is going to be word to mouth, so I have a few connections with people within restaurants. So I'm going to get set up with chefs and with those key decision makers. And then some of it is just going to be just going door to door, try to catch them in their off hours before noon, before, the restaurant opens, and just knock on the door and be like, hey, I have something to show you. It's going to be a mix of things, but as long as I can get the product in front of the consumer, I think that's the biggest part of it.
Can you talk a little bit about this concept of food deserts, and especially within low and moderate income neighborhoods and for neighborhoods with heavily skewed towards minorities? And, I grew up in New York, I'm Latino, and, you would see there was just these pockets of places in the city where it's just like the sea town, or just like the
Yeah.
cheapest market possible with the cheapest food, and it's not healthy. So I'm wondering how you think about the importance of your role in trying to increasing awareness about, this challenge that these communities face.
Yep, definitely. That's a good point. So where you're located, in Indianapolis, Indiana, 3415 East 10th Street. It's an upcoming neighborhood near East Side area renewal effort. So a lot of money has been put in from the city and federal government to bring the neighborhood up and revitalize the neighborhood. And within doing that, the reason how they got to that is because the USDA and other federal resources did a study on access to food for individuals living in the area. And this kind of gets to the importance of the census and all those things going on. They actually do have some good benefits. And I think as you look into what's going on in our area, one of the benefits is that we're starting to get more funding and more infrastructure built in our neighborhood. But since the study happened, they determined that this area is considered a food desert. And what it means is that within this certain population, people have to travel 5 or more miles to get to a place of food, like a store.
Mm-hmm.
So like I could think of right now, we don't have any Krogers nearby. There's no Whole Foods. Like the closest Whole Foods is downtown, and that's 10 miles from where I'm at now. The closest Kroger is probably, I would say, off of 71st Street. So
Okay.
what I'm saying is that if you look at the population, and since we're an up and coming neighborhood, a lot of the people around us are minorities or people within low income brackets, and they don't have the transportation or access to get to those food places. So being that they don't have the food places or outside of their reach, they had designated this as a food desert. And being outside of their reach, I'm meaning like their transportation reach, the bus system, the transportation system. It's not easy to get access to certain foods within this certain area. So it's considered a food desert. Now you can go 10 miles north and there's not a food desert because they have a Kroger right there. But
Sure.
like here where we are, access to food is pretty limited. And I'm talking about specifically fresh food. Like we have fast food around here, but you're not going to go anywhere right now and get a fresh head of lettuce unless you hopped on the bus or took a car and drove to Whole Foods or Kroger. It's just not accessible here. And so I think our role as a local farmer is trying to, mend that gap, try to offer an option for people who, or even restaurants who don't have this immediate access to food. And one thing we want to do is kind of just make ourselves available and known to the community that we are a local farmer here, and you can walk by and you won't see the land. You won't see the traditional crop rows and all that, but we have a 40-foot shipping container that's able to put out over 3 acres of fresh produce annually. So it's just going to be that learning curve where it will be a hurdle, but being that our community has already been designated as a food desert and shouldn't be too complicated to overcome.
I'm waiting for the first shipping container that has a drive-through window.
Hey, you gave me an idea.
Yeah. What's been the response to your friends, your family, as you're doing this business? Because it's something new. You mentioned you are, probably the first farmer in recent history within your family. So what's been, what are the questions they're asking? And I imagine there's a lot of curiosity as to what you're up to.
Yeah, most people are impressed, when they see it and they see the vegetables growing. They're like, oh, wow, this is neat. I didn't think that you can grow in a vertical form, and so they're mainly taken back. And then when you put the lights on, the infrared, blue and red lights, they're like, oh man, I'm blown away. Yeah. so it's like how does the saying go? Don't go where the path may follow, but make a path for others, but lead the way and others will follow. Yeah. So I think most people, most of my family are impressed, and they're just kind of like, this is some state of the art thing that, it's different, new, unique, and different.
Do you feel a sense of responsibility as someone who's sort of paving the way within your community? Because, when you think you ask kids when they're younger, everyone wants to be like an astronaut, a police officer, a cowboy, whatever, just whatever you think about when you're that age. But I think the challenge is not having role models who are doing different things. And I imagine if you've brought kids into that, they're just like, wow, this is cool. And just give people, kids, especially kids in these communities, some inspiration, I think is always a good thing.
Yeah, I think this is definitely putting me in the forefront of being a leader and also a leader in agriculture. I'm an African American, and so there's not a lot of people that look like me that can afford this type of farm equipment or at least have the land to put it on. So, with me being able to offer people that these are options for you to have and own a business, that there is a future in agriculture if you can achieve the proper type of funding and get the farm equipment, and that this is what you can do when you have that. I do appreciate that leadership position that God has put me in, and so I do consider myself a leader, and I think that I do have a responsibility to give back to the community, and I do also plan to set up some type of mentorship or some type of program where kids could come in and whether they're on a summer courses or whether they're doing internships, but have some type of exposure to this type of hydroponic farming. So this farm equipment has been able to open up many doors, and I've even had people come in here and be like, oh yeah, I can see things where you partner with schools and kids who want to be in botany. They can come up with their own strain of herbs or their own strain of leafy greens. They can learn to crossbreed and make their own different strains of plants. So that's something that people wouldn't have been able to consider, because if you are trying to control the elements of land and weather, it's going to be hard to control what your plants do.
Exactly.
But now you've taken those elements out, and it allows you to concentrate on like the plant's genes or something. You finally get to control that, and you have to worry about the elements affecting it.
You sort of feel like a little bit of a mad scientist sometimes. I
get in here and I get crazy, man. I just start looking at these little guys and I'm like, okay, I want to cut this and stick it onto cement or something, see what it does.
Yeah.
I'll get to that point one day.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm wondering, when you were doing the real estate thing, if you ever if you ever thought you were going to be thinking about things like climate control and things about hybridization and all this new things that you're having to learn. You'll never be, like they say, it takes a lifetime to master, but you can continue to make progress on a daily basis. Improve your skills.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from too. When I got into real estate, I never imagined I'd be into farming. I mean, I graduated from Purdue University. My degree was in management, and I have an associate's degree in industrial technology. I thought I'd be in the automotive industry all my life. I just never imagined I'd be sitting inside of a piece of farm equipment called a hydroponic farm called the Greenery, looking at fresh lettuce or fresh collard greens and kale. You would have never imagined, I just can't. It's just funny how things just took a turn.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think real estate enabled me to kind of get that mindset, that entrepreneur mindset, but it didn't prepare me for where I am now.
What's some of the hardest lessons you've had to learn in the greenery, being a hydroponic farmer, different than probably you had already learned and experienced in real estate? Oh,
it's what plants need to live, which is, the nutrients, and learning to control EC, electronic connectivity. You have to watch your levels. If the EC gets too high, your plants are going to burn up, and just trying to keep the maintenance on the water, making sure the water is fresh. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, learning to control the nutrients, control the EC, and also just starting up the business and learning the aspects of that, starting up a farming business. Because like I mentioned before, it's totally different than real estate. There's some nuances that you didn't think you'd have to pay attention to, but you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think in its own, just learning to control nutrients, learning what plants like, and also learning what the market wants are going to be the big things that I have to get used to. That's much different than real estate. Whereas a property, it just sits there, you improve it, and then it's desirable for someone to buy. And it's different with plants,
It must be an interesting feeling to walk in there every day and have all these living organisms that are under your care. So you're caring for all these living things, and it must be an interesting feeling to know that's your responsibility.
It is interesting, and it just gives you some appreciation. You start to appreciate the life of a plant, how it starts from a seed, and then it starts to germinate. Then it starts to require more light and more water then it starts to get its roots before it grows into the growth tower. So it's like you look at the seed, it's like you look at the plant from seed to its growth phase, and you start to appreciate the aspect of that a little bit more.
Yeah, and I imagine that's the same feeling people have when they come see it for the first time, and you show them the journey. I'm like, look, this is the seed, and this is how we're doing the seedlings, and then the seedlings they grow, and then we transport them here, and we just take for granted, I think, how food ends up on our plate, whether it's produce or when people they never want to know how the sausage is made. They just want to
they just want to eat it. Yeah, so that's 100% right. And, I've even had the opportunity to bring my kids in here and let them help me with the seeding and stuff, and they learn an appreciation as well. They put the seeds in the pot, and then after a while, the seeds will germinate and they'll become seedlings, and the seedlings go into growth towers, and the plants grow from there, become mature plants before they're ready to harvest. It really gives them an appreciation for the life cycle of a plant.
It's so interesting because with all the different hats that you have to wear, because normally, you're like, okay, this is done, pick the plant and then give it to whoever, but that's whatever step in the process that is for you. You're not done because you have to package it. You have to figure out who to sell it to, who's going to be the customer. And then you got to sort of switch gears. You got to put your marketing hat on now, and you got to put your PR hat on, and you have to do your business development hat on. And so
yeah, exactly.
It's interesting. You got to learn all those skills.
Yeah, and that's the life of a small farmer. I mean, it's one thing to be able to grow produce, but the next step is being able to get it out and get it in front of the people who want it. So I'm sure every farmer's had to overcome that. You just can't grow it and expect it to leave your farm and without putting some effort in. So that's something that I definitely have to get used to, and will overcome eventually. Maybe me being a new farmer, I still have some time to do it, but it's going to be a hurdle that I will do.
And so for those who are listening, who are interested and have thought about going down this path, what's a typical day look like for you?
So a typical day for me, I come into the farm and, I check on the seedlings, check the trays. I'll just show you. Let me flip my camera around.
Yeah, sure.
You'll like this. How's that?
I apologize for the listener. You won't be able to get the view, but
so anything, I come in, I look at the trays, and so I kind of take the trays and see if any of them sprouted, and then from there we'll see if any of them are ready for the growth towers, and if they're ready for the growth towers, we'll start to move them around. And then one of the last things I do is check the levels of all the pH and all the water levels, and if the water levels need to be filled, I would fill them up from that point. It's pretty easy going. There's once you learn and get the concept of seeding, transplanting, and then harvesting and do your maintenance, it's a pretty easy machine to operate.
It's sort of how it takes care of itself once you've got the knack for what you got to check on.
Yeah, pretty much. And freight farms, they help you out tremendously. They're always willing to help, and they're always there. So if you have any questions or anything, you can always give them a call.
And does this help you think about, as you have this container, aspirations of growing the business?
It's funny you ask that. I've already ordered a second container. Yeah, it's expected to be in here in December. So Yeah, we've already made the decision to grow the business, and
That's
when
great.
we built the infrastructure for this one, we built it so that we can have electricity for 4 containers. So we have
Okay.
possibility to scale in the future. With our second container, we imagine being able to stack 2 on top of it. So yeah, we have the future in mind.
And now talk to me also how you're learning and what you're learning about being a business owner and then also growing a team, because at some point you're going to need some help running all
Yeah.
these containers and running the business as well.
Definitely, definitely, and I've been talking a lot with Hammock Greens in Miami, Florida. They're further down the line than we are. They own like 4 or 5 freight farm greenery or leafy green machine. So we definitely been talking to them and kind of using them as mentors to help us build our structure. And what they say is, have a person for maintenance, have a person who can help with customer service, have a person who can help with seeding and transplanting. And once you have those people in place, that's when things start to get easier. So I can imagine having a head count of like 4 people within the next 6 months that'll be there or that I will need to kind of help me grow this business.
And how do you feel about that? Does that scare you, or is that
No, it doesn't scare me because I have a lot of family that want to help.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so
The
I've got a lot of
benefits.
family members that are eager to help. I have friends that want to get involved, so it doesn't quite scare me. I know I've helped there. It's more of just the unknown. How will I go about it? But I think it's the need is there, and I think the ability to do it is there. So it shouldn't be too hard to get done.
I get the sense from our conversation and the things you've accomplished over your life that you're the type of person that gets things done. uh, where does that drive come from?
Oh man, I guess it comes from just not having nothing. you
Mm,
know, I mean, it's been life has not been easy. It's been a challenge. So it's just kind of if what things weren't given to me. So the drive just comes from going out to be a go getter, go get it. Can't sit up and do nothing, or you wake
mm,
up and you won't have anything accomplished. So I've always made a model that leave something better than how you found it.
yeah, that's a good
And
one.
always try to make an impact on the world. Whatever you do, make a positive impact. Whether it's on someone's life, whether it's on creating something, things aren't going to get created by themselves. So they have to have people that will do it. And I'm one of those doers. I'm the type of person that I'll open up a package and probably start putting things together and then like, oh, there go the directions. Let me see
Yeah,
where the directions are, or what does it say once I get into some trouble. But
yeah.
yeah,
Ready, fire, aim.
yeah, there you go. But yeah, I think the drive comes from my mother too, because she's also a strong person, and she's a Leo. Her birthday's in August, and she
Okay.
just has a strong drive about her, and she's always been on my side and been able to encourage me when I get down and help me along. She's there as a strong supporter for the farm. She's also been here and helped me put in saturation strips and things like that. So
Okay.
yeah, she's a big supporter for me.
Well, that's important to have those people in your life that you can count on, that are sort of like your rock when you go through the ups and downs. And I'm sure there's memories of when she's been there to support you and to get you to the point where you're at now. And I know you're appreciative. I'm sure appreciative of that as well.
Yep, definitely.
What's her reaction, or what was the first reaction when she came in for the first time and just kind of explaining, what
Oh,
what's
she's like,
going on
oh,
there?
this is neat, and then so she was just surprised. Most people who come in, they're impressed. Just looking at the greenery, looking at the plants in the nursery, the seedlings, how they're starting from little sprouts to becoming big seedlings, and then you take them over to the growth towers, and they
Yeah.
get to see how the plants grow vertically. And as they're walking down there, I like to put the lights on and give them that bright look,
Yeah.
give them that shine the bright lights on them, and
Yeah.
then they see how the plants use the lights, and then they can see the water, and last I might let them get a taste test so they see that, so they
Yeah.
can see the freshness of it. And then from that point on, like everyone, my mother was really impressed about it and just kind of knew that this is state of the art machine, and
Yeah.
being the only one in Indiana, it can open up some doors.
Can you think of any other relationships you've built up over the years that have been helpful for you from like a mentorship perspective or inspiration perspective?
I think maintaining relationships is more important to me, because I have a lot of good people in my corner, a lot of good friends who have supported me. A lot of good friends from high school who are still on my side today, and I couldn't have did it if it wasn't for them. And they're people like me who grew up, went to high school together, and just kind of maintained and had a hustler's mind, and we may have went our separate ways, but we all came back to wanting to do business and to collaborate on different things together. So I think having a support structure of friends and family is very important. And no matter in whatever business you do, no matter if it's farming, real estate, or just in life, you need to have a good structure of family, friends, and also having God on your side as well. That's also very important, to have Him in the forefront of your life, and just kind of letting Him be involved in all the decisions that you make.
Yeah, having some sort of connection to something bigger than yourself is helpful, especially in those times when things start to look a little like you need the help, and it's nice to have someone in your corner be like, okay, I don't always ask for help, but I need help this time. So
yeah, you got it.
What's a tough question you've had to ask yourself recently?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say the toughest question is, like, where am I going to sell some of this stuff?
Yeah.
No, but like I've told you before, one thing I've done is I come in here and I've like planted a lot of seeds and have different things growing. So I'm trying out a lot. I've got strawberries, I've got tomatoes growing, I've got beets growing, I've got stevia, I've got lemon basil, sweet Thai basil, Genovese basil. I've got all kind of stuff growing. So I think one thing I'm going to ask myself is, how do I narrow my focus, get to a point where I'm growing efficiently, and just being able to capitalize on time, and just being able to have product that people want to buy. So I think that's like the toughest thing. What is going to be my product line, and every 6 months, like, what is going to be that demand? What's demand going to be? How do I stay on top of it? And also, when the next greenery comes as well, how are we going to be able to expand successfully? But I think those are questions every entrepreneur asks themselves. Those are the type of things that keep you up at night. And if you're not thinking about your business, and if you're not always figuring out how to make it grow, you're not doing the right thing. So yeah, that's me right there, trying to figure out not only how to make the farming business grow, but I got the real estate on the side too. So how do we how do we deal with that? Yeah, it's
what has you excited as you think about the next 2 or 3 years?
I think that hydroponic farming is going to blow up, and those who are on the forefront, they're going to be the ones to benefit. I mean, as you can see how natural disasters are happening, how what's going on in California, one of the major hubs for food, they're in droughts, they're in forest fires. So that's going to alter the supply. We saw how COVID-19 alters the supply of food. So I think within the next few years, it's going to gear more towards local farming, and people are going to start appreciating and being more aware of where their products come from, and going to have more, I would say, more knowledge on healthy eating, have more knowledge on, vitamins and things that you put in your body. And as the consumer starts to become more knowledgeable about where their things are coming from and what they put in their body, I think people with hydroponic backgrounds or people in agriculture become more they're going to become more desired. Local farming is going to become more desired. Organic produce will become more desired because a lot of people in the consumer are becoming smart. They're being aware of what's going on in our world. They're being aware of global warming. They're being aware of, forest fires and natural disasters affecting the supply. So I think local farmers are going to have more of an important role in the future, especially within the next 3 to 5 years. And having pieces of equipment like the greenery will enable those who once had aspirations to farm but did not have the resources, the land, the money. It's going to create opportunities for those people to cross that bridge and to get involved in this business. Now, I remember reading an article, and it talked about just how the percentage of African American farmers have decreased over the years, and I think it's now at 3% or less in North America.
Wow. Having
people know that, this is an opportunity that is available even if you don't own the land is going to be huge, and this is a way that it can be done with the greenery and with this freight farm hydroponic equipment.
Yeah, and not to put too much pressure on your shoulders, but you are leading the way. So
go ahead.
You're a role model, and for I don't know if there's a new term, farmers of color. So maybe start that one up.
Well, there's the Black Farmers Association. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Black Farmers Association. But it's just kind of funny, I just keep it real. My ancestors were brought here to this land, for agriculture purposes.
Yeah.
So we were once slaves, and that was our job to till the land. And it's funny now in today's society, there's not a lot of people that look like me that still own the land. So it's just kind of getting back to that. We can get back to still being able to work and produce without owning the land, and letting people see that there are opportunities within the agriculture business without owning the land. And I think to me, once I separated the concept that you have to own the land to farm, it became, I was aware then, that you don't have to have the two to have one. You can still farm and not own the land. So it's getting back to that,
Very, very inspirational story. What's one thing that most people might not know about you? A fun fact.
Okay, let me think about this one. So I like to knit. I actually knitted 3 scarves. Yeah, so I was the Super Bowl came to Indianapolis, and I was on the Super Scarves committee, and
That's
I
hilarious.
knit 3 scarves. Jim Irsay has one of my scarves, the owner of the Colts.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
and I've got one hanging up, and the other one I donated to a volunteer. But yeah, that's a fun fact. People may not know that, but yeah, I do knit in my spare time.
So you're a teddy bear at heart, definitely.
Yeah.
What was interesting, that seems like one of those skills that is probably helps to de-stress. It's one of those things that just if you want to take your mind off anything else that's going on, just start knitting and just then you get your mind off your business at least for
it sure will. Once you're there for an hour or two, you're like, man, what was that I was thinking about?
Who taught you?
I think that's something. Well, see, there's a local lady who owns Vertigo Knits. I think her name is Karen Schmidt. It was her, and there's another lady who taught me how to knit. And what they did was they put me in front of a simple pattern and just be like, okay, you cross stitch this and then you pull it out and you keep doing this with the needles. And after a while, it started to become fun. And then we used to sit around and have little knitting sessions, and everyone would just be in a circle with their yarn and just kind of gossiping and knitting at the same time. Like, oh, okay, this is the old ladies like to do. Okay, this is cool. It is a way to de-stress. Yeah, we had knitting clubs and everything.
Now you got to find a way to mix in the knitting with the farming or something with the marketing. My marketing brain always kicks in. I'm like, there's got to be a way to mix in some of that. So
yeah, that is true.
That. Maybe hand knit something or hand knit some sort of marketing thing you can give to people or repeat customers or something like that. So
yeah, that's a good one. Maybe a scarf or something.
Yeah. The holidays are coming up, so you always have to think about things from a branding perspective, and that feels like it's always something you're working on. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate you taking the time to come on here. I know it might be a new experience for you to be talking about the business, but I'm new to vertical farming as well, just learning, and that's why I started this podcast, to just educate my listeners, learn more, and sort of scratch my own itch and talk to just amazing founders. And I'm just appreciative for the opportunity. And I'm glad we got connected. And I'm really, really excited at what you're doing, especially for what you're doing to support the African American community, minority community, and just educating and giving inspiration to kids, I think is something that's really important. So I congratulate you for that.
Thank you. I do appreciate you having me on the Vertical Farming Podcast, and I do appreciate the time that you've allowed me. I get very excited when we talk about this subject, and so I'm glad I was able to share with you today.
Yeah. So where's the best place for folks to learn more about New Age Provisions and to connect with you online?
You can go to our website, newageprovisions.com, or you can email us at newageprovisions@gmail.com, or just feel free to give me a call anytime. I'm very easy to get in touch with. My number hasn't changed for almost 20 years now. So.
Okay. Oh yeah. Me too. I have a New York City number because I grew up in New York, and so wherever I travel, it's a 212 number, which is kind of rare. Most people don't have that. So,
oh wow.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. We also have a farm share program.
On
the domain farmshareprogram.com, and
okay.
So those in the Indianapolis area, they can subscribe and have fresh farm food delivered to them right to their door.
All right. So yeah, we'll get the word out. We'll put all those links in the show notes as well. So when people listen to the podcast, maybe your phone will start blowing up.
Awesome.
Or as they used
Harry.
to say back in the day, that your pager start blowing up.
I used to have a pager too. Beat me 911.
Yeah, going back old school. So
yeah.
Well, thanks again for your time, and I'll be following your journey. So I appreciate it, Mario.
Awesome. Thanks, Harry.
Really enjoyed that conversation with Mario. It's really inspirational to see how he's making a difference in his community, how he's bringing awareness to possibilities for minority farm owners, and just his inspirational story and the success that he's having really brought a smile to my face. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Tune in next week for my conversation with John Purcell, the CEO of Unfold. Special thanks to our episode sponsor, Ceres Greenhouse Solutions. Ceres is creating sustainable growing environments by combining smart design, innovative technology, and dynamic partnerships. Learn more at ceresgs.com. That's CERESGS.com. If you enjoyed this episode or past episodes, I'd love it if you leave a rating and a review at ratethispodcast.com/VFP. We'll be sure to read them out on future episodes. Until we meet again next week, here's to your health.
Thanks for listening. To read the full show notes for this episode, which includes any links mentioned in the episode, as well as a full show transcription, visit verticalfarmingpodcast.com. There, you can sign up for our email list to be notified when new episodes are published.